The cake hit her face with a wet, humiliating splat, silencing the crowded restaurant. Chocolate frosting smeared across Amara's cheek, her eyes wide with shock as her husband's voice roared, "You didn't pay the damn bill again!" The room froze, forks clattering, as Amara's world shattered in a single, cruel moment. She didn't flinch. Amara Jackson, 28, sat still, her dark skin glistening under the dim lights of the upscale Brooklyn eatery, the sting of public shame burning hotter than the cake itself. Her husband, Derek, loomed over the table, his face twisted with rage, oblivious to the gasps around them. 3 years of marriage, countless arguments about money, and now this, a spectacle born of his unchecked temper. But Amara's heart wasn't racing because of the cake or the eyes on her. It was racing because of her, Elena, the woman in the corner booth, watching with quiet intensity. Elena Martinez, 29, a barista with a poet's soul, had been stealing glances at Amara all evening. Her hazel eyes, sharp and kind, caught every detail. The way Amara's fingers trembled as she wiped frosting from her cheek. The way her shoulders stayed proud despite the weight of Derek's outburst. Elena's own heart thudded, a mix of fury and something deeper, something she'd buried since the first time she'd seen Amara walk into this cafe 6 months ago, her laughter filling the air like music. Amara's marriage had been crumbling for years, a slow bleed of resentment and control. Derek, a corporate lawyer with a penchant for perfection, demanded Amara fit his mold. Polished, obedient, the ideal black wife to complement his image. But Amara was fire, not clay. A graphic designer with dreams bigger than Derek's bank account. She'd grown tired of his rules, his lectures, his hands gripping her life too tightly. Tonight's dinner was supposed to be a truce, a chance to talk about their future. Instead, it was a breaking point. "Clean yourself up," Derek snapped, tossing a napkin at her. "You're embarrassing me." The words cut, but Amara's gaze flickered to Elena, who was already standing, her apron still tied from her shift, her jaw set. Elena didn't know Amara's story, not fully, but she knew enough. The late-night conversations when Amara lingered at the cafe, sketching in her notebook, sharing quiet smiles. The way Amara's eyes lit up when Elena slipped her an extra coffee, their fingers brushing. The unspoken pull between them electric and dangerous. Elena crossed the room, her boots clicking on the hardwood floor. "Hey!" she said, her voice low but firm, cutting through the tension. "You okay?" She ignored Derek, her focus locked on Amara, who nodded slowly, her breath shaky. The restaurant's chatter resumed, but for Amara, the world narrowed to Elena's steady presence, her warmth a lifeline in the chaos. Derek scoffed, grabbing his coat. "Don't start, barista girl. This is between me and my wife." His emphasis on wife was a warning, but Elena didn't back down. She handed Amara a damp cloth, her fingers lingering a moment too long. "You don't deserve this," she whispered, so only Amara could hear. Amara's chest tightened. She'd spent years hiding her truth, burying the part of herself that yearned for someone else. Growing up in a strict Baptist family in Atlanta, she'd learned to silence her desires, to pray away the feelings that stirred when she saw women like Elena. But here, in this moment, with chocolate smeared on her face and her husband's disdain hanging in the air, Amara felt something shift, a spark of defiance, of possibility. "I'm fine," Amara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She stood, wiping her face clean, her eyes locked on Elena's. "I'm leaving." Derek's jaw dropped, but Amara didn't look at him. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door, Elena at her side, the weight of every stare in the room fading behind her. Outside, the Brooklyn night was alive with noise, car horns, laughter, the hum of a city that never slept. Amara stopped under a street lamp, her breath visible in the cool air. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, her voice raw. Elena stepped closer, her denim jacket brushing Amara's arm. "You're choosing yourself," she said simply. "That's enough for now." They walked in silence, the city wrapping them in its chaos and comfort. Amara's mind raced, Derek's anger, her family's expectations, the life she'd built on lies. But with Elena beside her, her steps felt lighter, her heart daring to imagine a different ending. She didn't know where this path led, but for the first time in years, she wanted to find out. Amara's apartment felt like a cage. The sleek, modern furniture Derek had chosen screamed his taste. Cold, expensive, soulless. She stood in the living room, her suitcase half-packed, the events of the restaurant replaying in her mind. The cake, the shame, Elena's voice cutting through it all. She hadn't gone back to Derek that night. Instead, she'd followed Elena to a tiny diner in Williamsburg, where they'd talked until 2 a.m., the world fading around their shared laughter and tentative truths. Elena had listened as Amara poured out her story. The pressure to be the perfect wife, the guilt of hiding her attraction to women, the fear of losing everything if she dared to be herself. Elena shared her own past, a Catholic upbringing in the Bronx, coming out at 19, the family who'd turned their backs. "It gets better," Elena had said, her hand brushing Amara's across the diner table. "But only if you let yourself live." Now, alone in the apartment, Amara's phone buzzed with Derek's texts. "Where are you? We need to talk. You're making a scene." She ignored them, her fingers tracing the sketchbook she'd left on the coffee table. Inside were drawings of freedom, cityscapes, bold women, Elena's eyes sketched in secret. Each stroke was a rebellion against the life she'd been living. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Elena, her hair damp from the rain, holding a paper bag. "Thought you might need coffee," Elena said, her smile shy but warm. "And maybe a friend." Amara's heart skipped, the word friend carrying a weight neither of them acknowledged. They sat on the couch, the coffee warming their hands. Elena's presence filled the room with a quiet courage Amara envied. "I can't stay here," Amara said finally, her voice breaking. "Not with him. Not like this." Elena nodded, her eyes soft but fierce. "Then don't. You're stronger than you think, Amara." The door slammed open. Derek stormed in, his tie loose, his face a mask of fury. "So this is where you've been?" he spat, glaring at Elena. "With her." The accusation hung heavy, but Amara didn't flinch this time. She stood, her voice steady. "I'm done, Derek. I'm leaving." He laughed, a cruel sound. "You? Leave? You have nothing without me. No money, no family, no spine." His words stung, but Amara's gaze flicked to Elena, who stood beside her, unwavering. "I have myself," Amara said, the words a revelation. "That's enough." Derek's face darkened. He stepped closer, his voice low. "You walk out. You're throwing away everything." Amara held his gaze, her heart pounding but resolute. "Good," she said. "I don't want your everything." She grabbed her suitcase, Elena following, and they left Derek standing in his perfect, empty apartment. The rain-soaked streets of Brooklyn glistened under the streetlights. Amara's hands shook, but Elena's steady presence anchored her. They ended up at Elena's tiny studio, a cluttered space filled with books, plants, and half-finished poems. "You can stay here," Elena offered, her voice soft, "as long as you need." That night, Amara slept on Elena's couch, the sound of rain mingling with her racing thoughts. She was terrified, her future uncertain, her past unraveling. But as she drifted off, Elena's quiet humming from the next room felt like a promise. For the first time, Amara felt free. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Elena's mismatched curtains, painting Amara's face in soft golds. She woke to the smell of coffee and the sight of Elena scribbling in a notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Morning," Elena said, catching Amara's gaze. Her smile was a quiet invitation, and Amara felt her chest warm, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. They spent the day together, navigating the awkward intimacy of shared space. Elena's studio was a world apart from Derek's sterile apartment. Every corner burst with life, from the dog-eared poetry books to the Polaroids pinned above the desk. Amara traced her fingers over a photo of Elena laughing at a pride parade, her face painted with rainbow colors. "That was my first one," Elena said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Scariest day of my life." Also the best. Amara wanted to ask more, to know every piece of Elena's story, but her phone buzzed relentlessly. Derek's calls, voicemails, threats. You'll regret this. You can't just walk away. She silenced it, but the weight of his words lingered. Leaving wasn't just about walking out. It was about dismantling the life she'd built to survive. Her job, her friends, her family back in Atlanta. They all expected the Amara who played the part. The Amara who loved women didn't fit that script. Elena sensed her hesitation. You don't have to decide everything today, she said, handing Amara a mug. But you deserve to be you, not his version of you. The words hit hard, cracking open a truth Amara had buried since she was a teenager. Sneaking glances at girls in church, her heart racing with guilt. That afternoon, they walked to Prospect Park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Elena talked about her dreams, writing a poetry collection, opening a queer-friendly cafe. Amara shared her own, designing album covers for indie bands, creating art that told stories like hers. Their words wove together, tentative but honest, and when their hands brushed, neither pulled away. But reality crept in. Amara's phone lit up with a text from her sister, Keisha. Mom's asking why Derek's calling her, saying you left. What's going on? Amara's stomach twisted. Her family's love came with conditions. Conditions she'd spent her life meeting. Coming out now could mean losing them for good. Elena noticed the shift. You okay? She asked, her voice gentle. Amara shook her head, tears welling. I don't know how to do this. Be me. Elena stopped walking, turning to face her. You don't have to do it alone, she said, her eyes fierce with conviction. I'm here. That evening, back at the studio, Amara sketched while Elena wrote. The quiet was comfortable, their presence enough. But as night fell, a knock at the door shattered the peace. It was Derek, his face a storm of anger and desperation. Amara, we're not done, he said, his voice loud enough to echo down the hall. Elena stepped forward, her body a shield. She's done with you, she said, her tone unyielding. Amara's heart raced, but she stepped beside Elena, her voice steady. Go home, Derek. I'm not yours anymore. His eyes widened, but he left, the door slamming behind him. In the silence, Amara turned to Elena, their hands finding each other. The fear was still there, but so was the spark of something new, something worth fighting for. Days turned into weeks, and Amara settled into Elena's studio, her suitcase now a permanent fixture in the corner. The space felt like a sanctuary, but the outside world pressed in. Derek's lawyer sent papers, divorce proceedings, laced with demands for Amara to return his assets. Her bank account, tied to Derek's, was frozen. Her job, a freelance gig she'd balanced around his schedule, offered little stability. Yet, with Elena's quiet support, Amara felt a strength she hadn't known she had. They built a rhythm together. Mornings were coffee and shared playlists, Elena's indie rock mixing with Amara's R&B. Evenings were spent dreaming, Amara sketching bold designs, Elena reading her poems aloud, her voice weaving stories of love and resilience. Each moment chipped away at Amara's fear, replacing it with a fragile hope. But the pull of her old life lingered, especially when her mother called. Amara, what's this about you leaving Derek? Her mother's voice was sharp, tinged with disappointment. He's a good man. You're throwing away a stable life. Amara gripped the phone, her throat tight. She wanted to tell the truth, that she was falling for Elena, that she'd never loved Derek the way she was supposed to. But the words wouldn't come. I just need time, she said, hanging up, her heart heavy. Elena, sensing the shift, suggested a night out. They went to a queer bar in the East Village, a vibrant space pulsing with music and laughter. Amara felt out of place at first, her Baptist upbringing whispering shame, but Elena's hand in hers grounded her. They danced, their bodies close, the world blurring until it was just them. Two women daring to exist. When Elena kissed her, soft and certain, Amara felt her walls crumble, her heart racing with a joy she'd never allowed herself. But the night wasn't all freedom. A coworker of Derek's spotted them, his judgmental stare cutting through the crowd. By morning, Amara's phone was flooded with messages. Friends taking sides, her sister demanding answers, Derek's venomous texts accusing her of betrayal. The weight of it threatened to pull her under, but Elena's voice broke through. "You're not alone in this," she said, her hand squeezing Amara's. "We'll face it together." Amara nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she really build a life with Elena, when everything, her family, her community, her safety, was at stake? She spent the day job hunting, her sketches tucked away, her dreams feeling out of reach. Elena, meanwhile, worked a double shift at the cafe, her own dreams of poetry on hold to pay the rent. That evening, they sat on the fire escape, the city sprawling below. "I'm scared," Amara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I lose everything?" Elena's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "You're not losing, you're choosing. And whatever happens, I've got you." The words were a lifeline, and when Elena pulled her close, Amara let herself believe in them, if only for a moment. As the city hummed below, Amara realized this was her fight. Not just for love, but for herself. The road ahead was uncertain, but with Elena by her side, she was ready to take the next step. The divorce papers arrived on a gray Monday, a thick envelope that felt like a guillotine. Amara sat at Elena's kitchen table, staring at the legal jargon, her stomach churning. Derek was demanding everything, the apartment, the car, even her savings. His lawyer painted her as unstable, unfaithful, a narrative that stung with its half-truths. Amara's hands shook as she read, the weight of starting over crushing her. Elena, home from her shift, saw the papers and sat beside her. "He's trying to scare you," she said, her voice steady. "But you're not the woman he thinks you are." Amara wanted to believe her, but fear clawed at her. She'd built her life around Derek's stability, and now, with no job and a family turning away, she felt unmoored. She threw herself into action, applying for design jobs, her portfolio a lifeline. Elena helped, proofreading cover letters and offering quiet encouragement. One night, as they worked side by side, Amara's phone lit up with a call from Keisha. "Mom's sick," her sister said, her voice cold. "She wants you to come home, but she's heard rumors, Amara, about you and someone." The word someone dripped with judgment, and Amara's heart sank. She booked a flight to Atlanta, her mind a storm of guilt and resolve. Elena drove her to the airport, the silence between them heavy. "You don't have to hide who you are," Elena said as they parked. "Not for them." Amara nodded, but the fear of losing her family, of being fully seen, choked her. She kissed Elena goodbye, a quick, desperate press of lips, and boarded the plane. Atlanta was a memory trap. Her childhood home, filled with gospel music and her mother's cooking, now felt like a courtroom. Her mother, frail from a recent hospital stay, looked at Amara with weary eyes. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Are you with a woman?" Amara's throat closed, years of shame flooding back. She wanted to lie, to keep the peace, but Elena's words echoed. "You're choosing." "Yes," Amara said, her voice barely audible. "Her name's Elena. I love her." The room stilled, her mother's face crumpling. Keisha stood, arms crossed, her silence louder than words. "You're breaking her heart," Keisha said finally. "You're breaking all of us." Amara left the house that night, her mother's disappointed gaze burning into her. Back in New York, Elena was waiting at the airport, her arms open. Amara fell into them, tears streaming. "They don't understand," she whispered. Elena held her tighter. "They might one day, but you don't need their permission to be you." That night, Amara made a choice. She signed the divorce papers, agreeing to Derek's terms but keeping her dignity. She applied for a design internship at a queer-owned studio, a small step toward her dreams. As she lay beside Elena, their fingers intertwined, Amara felt the weight of her choices. Not easy, but hers. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time she wasn't fighting alone. Amara's internship at the design studio was a lifeline, a chance to rebuild. The queer-owned space buzzed with creativity. Bright murals, laughter, artists who saw her. Her first project was designing a logo for a local pride event, and every stroke of her pen felt like a declaration. But the joy was tempered by loss. Her mother stopped calling, and Keisha's texts grew cold. The silence from Atlanta was a wound that wouldn't heal. Elena was her anchor. They spent evenings cooking together, Amara learning Elena's abuelita's recipes, their laughter filling the studio. But tension crept in. Amara's long hours at the internship left little time for them, and Elena's cafe shifts stretched late. When they did talk, Amara's fears spilled out. Losing her family, failing at her dreams, dragging Elena into her mess. "I'm not going anywhere," Elena promised, but her tired eyes betrayed her own struggles. One night, a letter arrived from Derek's lawyer. A final settlement offer, demanding Amara pay legal fees. The sum was crippling, a reminder of Derek's power. Amara's resolve wavered, but Elena's voice cut through. "He's trying to control you, even now," she said, her hands cupping Amara's face. "Don't let him win." Inspired, Amara contacted a pro bono lawyer from a local LGBTQ+ center, who agreed to fight the fees. The lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Maya, became an unexpected ally. Over coffee, she shared her own story of coming out, her words a mirror to Amara's fears. "You're not just fighting for you," Maya said. "You're fighting for every black queer woman who's been told she can't." The words lit a fire in Amara. She poured herself into her work, her designs bolder, her voice louder. But the past wasn't done with her. At a gallery event showcasing her internship work, Derek appeared, polished and smug. "You think you're free?" he said, his voice low. "You'll crash without me." Amara's heart raced, but she stood tall, her portfolio under her arm. "I'm already flying," she said, turning away. Elena, watching from across the room, gave her a proud nod. Later, they celebrated at the bar where they'd first kissed. Elena raised a glass, her eyes shining. "To you," she said. "To us." Amara felt the weight of her journey. The pain, the courage, the love. But a call from Keisha interrupted the moment. "Mom's in the hospital. She's asking for you." Amara's heart sank, the choice ahead clear but brutal. She had to go back to Atlanta, to face her family, her truth, and the consequences. As she packed, Elena held her hand. "You're not alone," she said, her voice a vow. Amara nodded, her bag heavy but her heart lighter. She was ready to face her mother, not as the daughter who'd failed, but as the woman she was becoming. The hospital in Atlanta smelled of antiseptic and regret. Amara sat by her mother's bed, the beeping monitors a stark contrast to the silence between them. Her mother, weakened by a heart condition, looked smaller, her eyes distant. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice frail but sharp. Amara's throat tightened. "Because you're my mom," she said. "And I love you." The words hung heavy. Amara wanted to say more, to explain Elena, her choices, her truth, but fear stopped her. Keisha lingered in the doorway, her arms crossed, her judgment a wall. "She's tired," Keisha said, her tone final. "Don't upset her." Amara nodded, but as she left the room, her mother's hand grazed hers, a fleeting touch that felt like a question. Back in New York, Amara threw herself into her work, her designs for the Pride event gaining attention. The studio offered her a full-time position, a small victory that felt huge. Elena celebrated with her, cooking a feast of empanadas and dancing to Janelle Monáe in the studio. But the hospital call lingered, a shadow over their joy. Amara's mother was stable, but the rift remained. One evening, Amara found a letter tucked in her sketchbook, Elena's handwriting, a poem titled "For You." It spoke of courage, of love that bloomed in cracks, of a future worth fighting for. Tears stung Amara's eyes as she read, Elena watching from across the room. "I wrote it for you," Elena said softly, "because you're worth it." Amara crossed the room, kissing her fiercely, their love a quiet rebellion against the world. But Derek's shadow loomed. His lawyer pushed harder, threatening to drag the divorce into court. Amara's pro bono lawyer, Maya, fought back, uncovering Derek's financial overreach. "He's scared," Maya said. "You're not the woman he controlled anymore." The words empowered Amara, but the legal battle drained her. She and Elena argued small, tired fights about money, time, the weight of it all. One night, Amara broke. "What if I'm not enough?" she cried, her voice raw. "For you, for my family, for myself?" Elena knelt before her, her eyes fierce. "You're everything," she said, "and I'll remind you every day if I have to." The words steadied Amara, pulling her back from the edge. She decided to return to Atlanta one last time. At the hospital, she found her mother alone, her eyes softer. "I don't understand you," her mother said, her voice trembling. "But I don't want to lose you." It wasn't acceptance, but it was a start. Amara held her hand, tears falling, the first bridge rebuilt. Back in New York, Amara and Elena stood on the fire escape, the city alive below. "We're going to make it," Amara said, her voice certain. Elena smiled, her hand in Amara's. "We already are." The Pride event was a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Amara's designs plastered across banners and t-shirts. She stood in the crowd, Elena's arm around her, feeling like she belonged for the first time. Her logo, a vibrant heart woven with diverse faces, had gone viral online, earning her praise and a growing client list. But the victory was bittersweet. Her mother's health was improving, but their conversations remained cautious. Love tangled with unspoken truths. Elena, too, was chasing her dreams. She'd submitted her poetry to a local press, her words catching the eye of an editor. They celebrated with cheap wine and late-night talks, planning a future that felt within reach. But Derek's legal threats escalated. He demanded a public apology for embarrassing him, threatening to sue for defamation. Amara's lawyer, Maya, dismissed it as a bluff, but the stress wore Amara down. One evening, Amara found an old photo of herself and Derek, smiling at their wedding. The woman in the picture felt like a stranger, trapped in a life she didn't choose. She tore it in half, the act a quiet release. Elena found her, sitting among the pieces. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. Amara nodded, pulling Elena close. "I'm getting there." The turning point came at a community event at the LGBTQ+ Center. Amara was invited to speak about her designs, her story spilling out, her marriage, her shame, her love for Elena. The room listened, some nodding, others tearing up. A young black woman approached her after, eyes wide. "You gave me hope," she said. Amara's heart swelled, the weight of her journey shifting into purpose. But Derek wasn't done. He showed up at the studio, his charm replaced by desperation. "You're throwing away everything we built," he said, his voice low. Amara faced him, her voice steady. "I'm building something better." She walked away, leaving him speechless, her strength a quiet triumph. That night, Elena proposed a plan. A joint project, combining Amara's designs with Elena's poetry for a queer art exhibit. They worked late, their ideas sparking, their love fueling every word and stroke. Amara felt alive, her fears fading in the face of their shared vision. A call from Keisha broke the momentum. "Mom wants to see you," she said, her tone softer. "She's been reading about pride. She's trying." Amara's heart leapt, hope flickering. She and Elena planned a trip to Atlanta, not just for her mother, but for themselves, to show the world who they were, together. As they packed, Amara looked at Elena, her heart full. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick, "for seeing me." Elena smiled, her eyes bright. "Always." The road ahead was still uncertain, but Amara knew they'd face it hand in hand. The art exhibit was a dream realized. Amara's bold designs hung alongside Elena's poems, their work a tapestry of love and defiance. The Brooklyn Gallery buzzed with queer artists, activists, and allies, their voices a chorus of acceptance. Amara stood by her piece, a mural of two women embracing, their faces blurred but their love vivid. Elena's poem beside it read, "We bloom where they said we couldn't." Strangers hugged Amara, thanking her for her courage, and she felt her past, Derek, the shame, the silence, fade a little more. But the legal battle persisted. Derek's lawyer pushed for a settlement, draining Amara's energy. Maya fought fiercely, uncovering evidence of Derek's financial manipulation during their marriage. "We've got him," Maya said, her eyes gleaming. "He's losing ground." The news was a spark, but Amara's focus was on the present, on Elena, on their art, on the life they were building. The trip to Atlanta loomed. Amara's mother had sent a tentative text. "I'm proud of your art." The words were small but seismic, a crack in the wall between them. Amara and Elena arrived at the hospital, hand in hand, their nerves raw. Her mother looked stronger, her eyes searching Amara's. "I don't understand everything," she said, her voice soft. "But I see you're happy. That matters." Keisha, quieter now, nodded, a silent truce. The visit wasn't perfect. Questions lingered, and old wounds ached. But as Amara and Elena left, her mother hugged them both, a gesture that felt like a beginning. Back in New York, they threw themselves into their work, the exhibit gaining traction. A local magazine featured them, calling their art a love letter to queer resilience. Amara's client list grew, and Elena's poetry was accepted for publication. One night, as they lay in bed, Amara traced Elena's jaw, her heart full. "I was so scared," she admitted. "But you made me brave." Elena kissed her, soft and sure. "You were always brave," she said. "You just needed to see it." The divorce finalized quietly, Derek's threats crumbling under Maya's skill. Amara walked away with her freedom and a small settlement, enough to start fresh. She and Elena moved into a new apartment, a cozy space they filled with art, music, and love. The city stretched before them, a canvas for their dreams. Amara knew the journey wasn't over. Her family's acceptance was fragile, and the world still judged. But with Elena by her side, she felt unstoppable. They were writing their own story, one brushstroke, one word, one kiss at a time. A year later, Amara stood on a stage at New York Pride, her voice steady as she spoke to a sea of rainbow flags. "I used to hide," she said, her eyes finding Elena in the crowd. "But love taught me to stand tall." Her designs, now iconic in the queer community, adorned banners across the city. Elena's poetry collection, dedicated to Amara, sat on bookstore shelves, its words a beacon for others. Their new apartment was a home, filled with laughter, art, and the scent of Elena's cooking. Amara's mother visited, her steps tentative but her heart open. She didn't fully understand, but she listened, her love for Amara stronger than her doubts. Keisha came too, her apologies quiet but sincere. The family wasn't whole, but it was healing. Derek faded into memory, his control a distant shadow. Amara's career soared, her designs gracing album covers and community campaigns. Elena opened her dream cafe, a queer-friendly space where Amara's art hung proudly. They built a community, friends, artists, dreamers, who saw them for who they were. One evening, on their fire escape, Amara proposed. Not with a ring, but with a sketch, a portrait of them, vibrant and free, with the words "Forever Ours" inked below. Elena laughed through tears, saying yes before the question was fully asked. They kissed under the city lights, their love a quiet revolution. Amara's journey hadn't been easy. The world still challenged her, her blackness, her queerness, her audacity to exist. But every step, from the cake in her face to the stage at Pride, had been hers. She'd chosen herself, chosen Elena, chosen love. And in that choice, she'd found a life that was messy, beautiful, and undeniably her own. As they stood together, the city humming below, Amara knew this was no fairy tale ending. It was better. A beginning, written in courage, sealed with love, and open to whatever came next.